Okay, we're going to call this Board of Education meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll just move into our one agenda item, which is the budget. The first thing I'd like to do is clarify some information I gave last time. It wasn't totally accurate. So we were talking about the increased revenue to the town being like $869,000 and change. That is accurate. But when we talked about what the general government was using, so what the selectmen were proposing, Chet, I told you that that didn't include capital. And the number is in fact including capital. So they're looking at about 2.59% increase right now. Although they continue to work on their budget, so that's not done all the way by any means. And it's an increase in dollars of right now $582,114. That does include their capital increases. So I thought the best way to do this was to just take our budget part and just sort of go line by line, get everybody's questions answered. Anything clarified that we need clarification on. And I think that might be the most efficient way to do it. So if we start with page 1, I will open it up to any questions or concerns on page 1.
We're talking page 1 on this.
That's right.
All right. So I think I'll jump right into it on the idea of the long-term sub aspect versus the salaries line and the way, because I feel like that's one of the big hangups that we had coming in. And I appreciate the lowering of the long-term sub aspect, but I guess the question that I have falls into, I think, similar things to what Christine had mentioned, other people had mentioned, which is if our goal there is to provide time for a staff member to be able to do the curriculum piece, at what level does the combination of that 35 plus the 15K that we have as an amount of money going to that person turn into something that instead we should be hiring a staff person and having somebody who is a curriculum coordinator that's covering our buildings? What does that look like if that were to happen instead? Because I guess I have difficulty with the idea of planning for the idea that we're going to have a staff member who, because of other responsibilities, will consistently be out of the classroom and replaced with a long-term substitute. And I would rather have somebody who was consistently in a classroom and somebody who is consistently doing a separate job.
Troy, can you provide some insight or clarification?
Yes, please. So, valid concern for sure. So our intention really is to not be pulling this person out of her classes to do the work, but to have someone else teach the classes, not even her classes. Just teach the classes. So the idea of maybe not calling it long-term sub and putting it in the salary line is not a bad idea as well. But we just kept it in that salary line initially because that's where we initially mentioned it. And so we just reduced that 60 down to 35, which is what we would need to hire a 0.6 teacher. So we could look at it as it's really just a 0.6 teacher. It's not taking her classes, so we can assign her fewer classes to teach so that she can do the work.
So I think that's kind of my hang up here as well. I'm struggling with saying we're going to give $15,000 as a stipend in addition to, and now we're going to pull somebody as, we're still calling it a long-term sub, which really it's not what you want it to be. You want to create a 0.6 position. So I think my hangup is
Yeah.
we're not using the nomenclature that it needs to appropriately have. This should be a 0.6 salary, not a 0.6 sub.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think you can do it that way. I think you guys could decide. And
Does
But-
the 15K then come off of
right,
that?
so
Would this be that she would be getting her salary, but
that-
using her time in the day to
that's
do
not
it?
our intention. Our intention is that she would get her teacher pay and the 15,000. And the reason why is because it really is leadership work, significant district-wide leadership work. And she has her O-92 that was paid for by the district. And the reality is she could get an administrative job somewhere else and leave, and then we would suffer from not having her here. She's having a huge impact right now. And I think it's a nice incentive for her to stay and continue to do the work that she's doing.
So I'm now gonna ask, so you're saying a 0.6, so she's gonna go down to a 0.4 plus 15K, correct?
No. She would get her full-time teaching salary.
No, but I'm saying like
Oh, and
effectively time in the classroom would be a 0.4.
Practically, she would teach at least one class. Possibly more, but at least one.
So so effectively, you're creating an administrative position without titling an administrative position, changing the nature of the job, and now you'd also have to look at what are the contractual ramifications of this with regard to this change?
Yeah,
I'm
right. Well, no, you're
concerned about
right.
those.
You're right. Yeah, I think your thoughts are, you're right on. One other aspect that regarding contract that we have looked into is that in the current teacher's contract, it does say if we were to hire a full-time curriculum director, all the program supervisor stipends would cease immediately. And we need those people doing that work as well. So that's why having her continue to teach a class, and she's not a full-time, no one can say she's full-time curriculum director.
Right, but I think then we also have to then look at language from the administrator's contract and put it into the teacher's contract, because the stipend for the curriculum coordinator is only written in the contract language of the administrator's contract. So you need to MOU that in as well.
Well, we could, but I think if we look at the language in the administrator's contract, it allows the superintendent to assign that stipend to an administrator or to a teacher. And we
So-
could double check that language of that.
So if I'm understanding, Troy, you're looking at keeping that position as is as a teacher, but allowing some of those hours to be done outside of classroom and still giving the admin stipend of $15,000.
That's correct.
And just so the board understands too, this isn't just curriculum coordinator. She's doing innovative instruction and PD work across the board, pre-K through 12. So if you can speak to that a little bit more, Troy, of some of the work she's doing, and maybe we have a
Yeah.
better
If
understanding
you-
of.
You remember,
that as well.
she did present to the board earlier in the year about what she was doing and had a whole PowerPoint about it and was very articulate. Also took it to Lauren Board of Directors and she helped me with a presentation there. This is a highly competent person. But in terms of the work she's doing, I did forward to you some quotes from the PD day today. I don't know if you got a chance to look at that. But some teachers were like, this is the best PD we've had since I've been here. And Kim organized a whole day. And then she worked specifically, you may have read, with the first grade team on some things, and they got a lot out of that help that she provided. So she's certainly proven her worth, and she's just a tremendous asset to the district. It'd be a shame if she decided to go somewhere else and take a full-time administrative role. She really enjoys the work she's doing, and if she's allowed to do it, I think she really will stay, at least for the year. And that year, we can have tremendous improvement on our innovative instruction goal. That's the whole day was on innovative instruction. She and I co-taught the first hour in the gymnasium, and teachers have real clear vision now of what they can do. There's follow-up, by the way, the next PD day, people have to report on what they did, how it went. I'm trying to just find in the contract here about that. It is, I know it allows the superintendent to assign it to a teacher.
Troy, I think what I'm struggling with here, and again, I'm gonna go back to the term you used here with long-term sub.
Yes.
And I feel like this is going to become social worker that was actually a school counselor.
Right.
And when all was said and done, without that information being given to us until after the hire had already been made. So
Okay.
I'm just concerned with how this is being presented versus how the ultimate vision is. I have no problem with this if this is the vision,
Yeah.
but it seems we went from 60 to 35. It's long-term subs, and then it was
Well,
multiple long-term subs.
Yes. Honestly, we didn't have it clarified ourselves, honestly, last time, and we
Okay.
should have. We should have come in with a clearer vision than we did last time. I wish we had, can't go back in time. In the future, I think we're gonna try to have more of a budget for you that has been already thought through completely and, a lot of those things clarified ahead of time. So, but that's why I sent you the email to clarify. I said we would. I said we need to think about that. We need to talk about that. We need to clarify what this is. And we looked at the long-term sub budget. And we actually went through and looked at the people who have taken long-term leaves. And the reality is sometimes it costs you money, sometimes it saves you money, depending on if they're using sick days or how many sick days they're using. And so we believe, while it's highly variable and a little bit up the chance, how much money you'll need for long-term subs, we think we have enough without adding that money. That the 35,000 would pay for the teacher to teach social studies classes.
Which,
So Kim Haggerty,
We also
Wouldn't be
looked
assigned.
at, it looks like some of the in-house work she's doing is very effective.
yes,
This year, we didn't do a lot of out of district workshops, but yet we're budgeting more for that.
Yeah.
Are there people saying, I have workshops I need to attend, or is that, could we bring that at least for
Yeah.
this year in-house
yes.
to utilize her on that?
I think that's a great idea. We do have some people that have requested and we've sent them to outside things, but we could absolutely limit that. And definitely, I think that's a good idea.
Because there's so much work to be done
Yeah.
in-house that I think we could leverage her with, that would free up $7,000 of increase out of the budget, still leaving intact what we've already budgeted for those two line items.
I do think that there's a value to sort of picking a lane in terms of how we're going to do professional development. And if it's working through Kim Haggerty, then we want to, I think, invest in that. But like Christina's saying, if we have that line item, it looks like isn't going to be expended at the end of the year. Do we need to budget more for that? And just a question in terms of practical application. So if she's reducing the number of classes that she's teaching
Yeah.
with this plan, who is teaching those classes?
We would have to hire someone. That's where the 0.6 comes
Is
in.
is that the long-term sub?
That's what we have in the long-term sub line, but the reality is, and some of you had mentioned it, and I
It will
think
be a
it's a good
part-time
idea
teacher.
to move it to the salary line and just call it a part-time teacher. And honestly, I think we could call it a 1 year.
so in order to not ultimately, and this is where it's gonna get tricky,
Yeah,
you're going to have to designate Kim as an administrator for that year, or else her service doesn't count towards TRB. Because if she's not in the classroom teaching, you have to fill that as an administrative role, which means you have
But
to
the-
designate her time not in the classroom as
okay,
administrative.
we can look into that for sure, but she would still be teaching a class.
Understood.
right?
So.
But not full, not a
because-
full load.
Because she doesn't have a full load.
Yeah.
You have to
I
designate.
don't know. I think we'll look into it.
I had years of service as an administrator before I actually got my first job. Because I
Yeah.
was doing an internship as an administrative intern, which then meant that when they pulled me out of my class,
Yeah.
that 0.2, I had 3 years
So-
of 0.2.
I wonder if, because there's a lot of people that serve as instructional coaches in districts, and I believe they still contribute to TRB. So there's probably a way to report it, that they're still teaching.
I just want to make
In
sure that you're protecting
classrooms?
her
Yeah.
in this type
But
of a shift.
we would have to make sure that works. I'm pretty sure it can, but it's a good point. We don't want it to hurt her retirement.
So in the interest of time, I just want to sort of,
I actually have one more question
sure.
here. And I see that this, when you talked about long-term subs, things like that, and since you put this focus on innovative instruction, what type of money have you put in for, say, period long subs or, fill-ins for teachers so they can go watch other teachers teaching it innovatively so
Well,
they can
that-
actually
that-
build their own practice?
Well, that's a great idea, and I know that the administrators are encouraging that, and they will even watch the classes themselves, so it doesn't cost anything for that. So it is happening. As you probably know, it is difficult for a teacher to leave their class to go watch another class, and they're gonna leave some plans and all that, but we are talking about that. We've been talking about that in terms of the new evaluation plan and making that part of the new teacher evaluation is to have the expectation that you go watch colleagues. Yeah, but I know, that's great, but we haven't budgeted for it, and I don't think we need to. I think we can cover it with administrators or other people.
Hi, I'm sorry I came in a few minutes late. But I had a couple questions. So the part-time teacher at 0.6, would that be the same person? And would they have regular hours, the same hours, or would it be, would it? No,
Ideally.
I understand that, but if it's a 0.6 teacher to reduce the time, Kim's time in the
So
classroom,
they would,
So that person would have to be here full time, even though they're 6 because
yeah, there might be some days they can come in late, some days they can leave early.
So that
type
schedule
of
would
thing. But
fluctuate?
Ideally, it's one person.
okay, so it would be one person, the schedule would fluctuate. And is there a way to for the curriculum coordinator to be a full-time position on its own? Is that,
I mean,
not?
that would be great, but we're a small district, and I think that I'd like to see that happen, but I think we'd have to change the language in the teacher's contract before we do that, because then some of the program supervisors would lose their stipends. And I don't know if it's sustainable to have
Okay.
a full-time curriculum director.
All right, I'm
Use
just,
the 1 year, suggesting, let's try this.
Yeah.
let's Leverage the work she's already doing.
And the 1 year, if we were gonna do it for a year, next year would be a good year to do it, because we have momentum now going on with the innovative instruction. We have teachers receptive to Kim's help. And then we also have, the NEASC visit in fall of 25, which is just the first visit, the collaborative conference, but they're gonna look for, what are we doing instructionally? And they're all about innovative instruction, and curriculum.
all
what
right.
happens
And,
when they
and
come
one,
back in 10 years and that position's not there?
Well, no, yeah, I think, you don't need to have the position. It's not a criteria for accreditation.
and just one more thing, the professional development line items, whether it just be in-house or I wouldn't want to restrict us to only in-house if there's something of value that a teacher may really want to attend out of district.
Yeah, I think that, the board could decide, that they wanted to reduce that line and then allow me and my administrators to choose what would be a worthy out-of-district workshop to spend the money on versus what would be.
There's still $10,000
Oh.
out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we already cut it from the original budget. Right. So currently there's 10,000, 5,000 and two
So
separate
we could
lines.
just not increase it, is what you're saying?
There's 2 line items and we'd have 5,000 budgeted.
Gotcha.
So I just, if we're gonna, I think we're doing some really good work here in terms of asking for some changes. How do you all want to do that from a sort of practical standpoint? So do we want to collectively agree that that's the change that we're asking Bill to make in the budget? I don't want to lose sort of what we're doing. So turn on your mic and tell us what kind of change you'd like to make here.
So, so I think we want to prioritize our changes. I think the 2 top priorities are going to be definitely this curriculum innovative instruction work that Mrs. Haggerty is doing right now. So definitely move that. For me, I'd say make that per diem or whatever, that long-term subline flat. and move that over to a 0.6 salaried position.
Can I just ask a really quick question about this? And I apologize if I missed that. So if it moves to that 0.6 position, is it full benefits, everything? Or is it still a per day diem? Or how, what happens? Like, how is this person going to have health insurance 6 times? Like what? If we move it there, so my understanding is a long-term sub would not have that benefit, correct?
Right, but we'd also wouldn't have a teacher teaching social studies.
I know, that's why I'm
Right.
concerned. So that's what I'm
So-
asking.
But that 35 to 65 becomes actually a higher hit if that person needs to take benefits, because they still are entitled to getting some of the benefit.
Right, do they get?
What is our cutoff? Is it 0.4, 0.6, 0.8?
Can,
0.5 or more.
Bill, can you turn on your mic when you're talking?
So I think what we'd want to
0.5.
do is just see how that position works into this budget for our next meeting.
But with benefits
With-
added to that
If,
line.
if they're required. to
If
get-
they took benefits.
If they
yeah,
took
Okay.
that in.
benefits, we would show it.
That's gonna
Okay.
be a much different number at the bottom line than the 35 to 65.
I want to say that I advocate for a real like one person versus kind of like a hop in. I don't think that that's wise instructionally, but I am concerned about the additional cost.
I agree with that one person. Is my
So if we
opinion.
could see that impact, that would be perfect.
So I think everyone's in agreement that that is a change we want to see.
Can we see that impact with the lowering of the P, like, I guess I would say that that would be the combined aspect of lowering that PD with the expectation that having this position with a stipend would also include work on the PD aspect of things.
So both of those line items leave them flat.
So that's travel / conferences and out of district workshops that we'd be looking to leave flat at the
Mhm.
23-24 funding level.
Yes, that.
But then
equates to about
transfer that-
$7,000.
Right, that's moving over, but we want to flatten out those
We
lines.
want to
because
flatten
we
that
have-
line and move that into the
Big growth
salary
there.
line along with this piece. I guess I'm just trying to make sure that what we're moving there is going to have the least impact
We
on the
won't be
overall.
moving it to the salary line. The salary line will be whatever that salary is, it'll
Right.
be. We're just going to not have that expense increase on those 2 line items at this point.
I could just move to health insurance or something just to partially cover maybe if the person takes it.
We'll just make it flat and then show us what the real
Right.
number is on health insurance, the real number is of what we think that 0.6 teacher will be.
Right. Okay, so if we, I think that's probably as far as we can get with the curriculum coordinator sort of situation. So if we can return to that first page, I'd like to just sort of go down the list here as an exercise, especially for the public to hear about line items that experience a large increase or decrease. So Bill, the first one, and I'm sorry, they don't have line items for me to tell you what line item, but I did make that request today.
Yeah, I did.
So salaries for the central office, we're experiencing an 18.84% increase. And I believe that's because you're putting the BCBA there, is that right?
Yes.
And what else will be there?
That's correct. It's the BCBA, it's the increase in the superintendent contract that wasn't in the budget when you negotiated my contract last year. And just small increases for people going into this year. I think the 3% increase. Is that
Right,
right,
but the
Bill?
large jump is based on the BCBA being
Mainly the BCBA.
perfect, thank you.
Yes.
I'm gonna move to,
May I just ask a quick
Yes.
question about that? On our current statement, there's 2 central office salary line items. One is 631,386, which matches what's on this first sheet. And then there's a second one under the 213 salaries for teachers, and it says central office 106,698. And I do not see that reflective in this budget. I couldn't find it, so I'm wondering where that is. Because initially I thought that's what was combining to get us the 750 plus salary increases, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. So if we already have it in the current budget, what is that 106,698?
106. All right. So are you seeing that on the first page of this document we're looking at? What?
I'm seeing it in our current budget
Oh, in the current,
monthly
oh,
report
the monthly report.
under the 213 line items, salaries for teachers, a 110 item as well, just like the 110 on top, but it's another 106,698.
All right, so the January report you're referring to?
Yes,
Okay.
page
And
1,
at the
about
bottom,
middle of the page.
salary.
It's line, it's section 213
Oh, 213. Thank you. That helps.
and line 110.
Mhm.
It's the nurses, I think.
It's nurses? Okay,
Nurses
so
are charged as the
So-
sub-office.
where are the nurses on here then?
You see what line you're talking about? Oh, salary.
So it looks like they're right at the top of our page.
Oh, right, yeah, so we're, first with the teacher.
Yeah.
What page are we
Right.
on?
No.
All right here, top of this page.
Oh, gotcha. It's under my sticky note.
And that line's not showing up here though, right?
Like one.
50, 102. It's just not, it doesn't make sense to me why it's broken out like that.
Let me-
and why
let me
everyone
bring it
else
over
is-
to
Bill,
Bill.
do you have some input as to what that is?
The nurses.
They
Isn't
don't-
it?
It doesn't add.
Doesn't quite add up.
Oh, you
I got it.
Central office salary, 110, it's under 0213 salaries teachers. And it says.
God, I
salary
live on a
central
kill.
office.
Yeah,
Is that?
elementary school nurse, middle school nurse, high school nurse.
Those are nurses?
It
The
does.
nurses.
I got it at 104.
So this needs to be, maybe we could
I have one.
make this nurses.
Oh, I'm looking at next year's budget, not this year. Thank you. I added
Right, it's not-
next year's numbers, not this year's numbers.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for the clarification.
Okay, so that's some clarification there.
Nurses.
Thank you.
There it is.
All right,
Okay,
sorry. I just,
that's okay. So, my next question is, salaries, special ed teacher, summer school.
Mhm.
So we have an 11% increase. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's just based on what we spent this last summer. We've been under budgeting a little bit. And there's less grant money to pay for summer school than there has been in the past too. There was a lot of COVID money for summer school.
doesn't show that one. The budget on that. Are you looking at paraprofessional staff?
No, I'm not. I'm looking at the summer school line and I'm trying to compare it to our January reports that shows what we project being at. So it looks like we under budgeted this year by $11,000 and some change, Bill. That's how far we're gonna be negative if I'm looking at your projected balance from the January report. But we're only increasing it by $2,000.
Well, I think the plan now is to cut back on summer school because there's no longer the grant money. So we won't be, the program won't be as robust as it's been in the past 2 or 3 years.
So while we under budget this year by $11,000, we only need to increase the funding from this year by $2,000 to cover our summer school 24-25.
Under the current plan, yes.
Yeah, and
Because
this
we did
is,
talk about this last summer that we're going to have to cut. Because there's no more grant money and
yeah, and this is for regular ed. It's
Yes,
not special
regular
ed.
ed.
Special ed's different.
This was the special ed number that we.
Oh, I'm sorry, we were just talking about special ed. Yeah.
We're
It
talking.
says regular ed teacher.
No,
No,
we're
the
looking
special-
at the special ed.
Oh, you're talking about special ed now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that still the same answer then, Bill, if it's the special ed money?
yeah, so basically we have $40,000 for summer school, split it between whatever we need to do. And that's the budget, we'll give to our administrators, say, how they split it between special ed teachers or regular ed teachers isn't necessarily
It's the difference
what-
between required special ed services and
Right.
credit recovery things and stuff like that.
The minute you start hitting ESY, that's gonna take precedent over a kid needing credit recovery.
Sure, I just want to make sure that our line items are as accurate as we can get them to be. I totally get that things might have to move. I just want to make sure we're planning appropriately for them. Okay, moving on, there's an 8.97 increase in both middle school and high school guidance. I'm sure some of that is salary. But, oh, sure, of course.
On the extra duty coaching stipends, last year we budgeted fully what was in the contract. Can we take a look now at what we actually used and budget for what we anticipate using instead of funding every stipend line item that we may not use some of that?
I
Are
think
we
that's what he
required?
removed,
I-
right?
But I think we're required to actually fully fund what's in the contract, because I've seen this happen in other budget discussions. Where even if we know that we might be able to move it into a different spot along the way, we have to have it set out. Because otherwise we're not fulfilling the contractual obligations of the contract.
Yeah.
We need them.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, the teachers union could make that argument if we didn't budget for it, but we also remember we're trying to create more opportunities for kids, athletic opportunities. And we might actually need that to run some of those programs that even didn't run this past year, or to run some alternative program.
And if you're looking to create a unified program, you're
Yes.
gonna need some of that funding
It-
there to increase engagement and opportunities and transportation and things of that nature.
Stipend positions are transportation.
Well, but you're still gonna need all that money for funding that initiative within the 80s, purview based on the new job description. So you have to have that funding there for it.
But Bill, you cut $15,000 roughly, right, out of that line because those were the stipends that we weren't
So
filling.
when I did the original budget, I added stipends for track. So we added, and then upon further analysis, I realized we don't need all that money. But there's also, that account also pays for all the timekeepers and scorekeepers and clock people. So they are also being coded to that account. So it makes it a little bit higher than the actual contractual stipend. So as you can see in the past, we've usually come under budget in that account, so there's really no reason to increase it.
Does anyone have other questions about that line item? So Bill, all you did was simply remove the increases that you didn't feel like were necessary,
Correct,
still meeting our contractual obligations.
correct. Because the number is higher than the contract, because there's money in there for the helpers, whatever you want to call them.
But it's only like $3,000 more than the contract, right? When we added up
Well, a
all
little
the
bit more than that,
stipends.
but.
Yeah, it's not much more.
And maybe we could separate out, might be a good idea to separate the athletic stipends from the academic stipends. Something to think about too. No, instead of just lumping them all together, but maybe be more useful information. Yeah.
I think that might be helpful. Do other people have questions on this first page?
Yeah,
Yeah, can I just ask, out of curiosity, why the huge jump for the cafeteria aides?
The
Min-
cafeteria, the minimum wage.
Minimum
went up,
wage.
Right, Bill?
And we've been under budgeting, but minimum wage is one of the main reasons. And they're working a little bit more than they have in the past. That's something, again, we can look into. But people find them helpful, of course.
It's increased 126%. That was minimum wage?
And they're working more hours than been budgeted in the past.
That seems
Is-
high.
Well, is there a reason that they, and I'm curious because
We extended all of the lunch waves by 10 minutes for
Right.
every single grade because of the legislature last year, which means that we went from 20-minute lunches for all of these to 30-minute lunches for all of the grades, which means that you extended the overall working time for all of these people by,
2 hours, 2
Oh.
hours and 10 minutes.
I mean, when you can, by
If you add them
50%,
back.
by 50%, right? So you increase the total number of hours by 50% because you went from 20 to 30. And then on top of that, you increase the wage.
That tracks. For the most part.
It looks like we're projected to be under budgeted this year by $7,443 and some change, which certainly amounts to a significant piece of that increase, but I see about $4,000 more. Do you anticipate new things happening next year, Bill, or is that just a salary increase for them?
It's just a salary increase and the cafeteria, one of the cafeteria aides is also the office aide. So as you look at the contract, we haven't coded anything to office aides. I think some money needs to be moved into the office, which will then balance it out because it's the same people doing both jobs. So if you sort of put the two together, we balance out, but we'll need to, I need to fix that in the current year by adjusting, making an entry to move. The person works half-time in the cafeteria and half-time in the office. So there needs to be an adjustment made there. But between the positions and the aggregate, the funding is enough. We just need to make it more accurate in the coding.
Can I ask some questions?
course.
Can I ask about the going down? So maybe the per diem elementary, so that's down 24%, 25%. Is that could you explain that?
So as the substitute line goes up and down a lot from year to year. So for next year, between district-wide, we have budgeted $135,000 for substitutes. So I think, unless there's something out of the ordinary happens, that, on a district-wide level, that should cover the cost of the substitute teachers throughout the district.
So, but it sounds like we have like our principals subbing in, like would it be worth adding more here so that we get more subs, or so that they can have their duties, as a principal?
The problem is attracting the subs.
I can imagine. But maybe if we pay them a really great wage.
So
Find the people to pay.
Okay, anyway.
So
I'm
one
curious.
year, and we trended really high and then, but as we noticed the current year, we are not trending
Okay,
that high when we're way under budget. So we made an adjustment
and so that carries.
based on the current year's trend. And it's still,
Okay,
$135,000, still quite a bit of money in the account.
no, that's fine. I'm just questioning. And then so that goes also with the MS substitute. per
Yeah,
diems?
the middle school and the
Okay.
high school, they're,
And then the officials constables, what is that line item?
that's the
Sporting events. Okay.
referees.
Okay, and so you anticipate it being down?
Yeah, we're not spending, the trend in the last few years has been not to spend it all.
Perfect. Okay, great.
If every team makes the state championships, well, maybe we'll go over.
Okay, sounds great.
Bill, I
you.
noted that trend was happening, but in your original budget, you had added more to both of those lines, and I wondered what your thought process was there, because then for this newest wave, you backed it out, but I wondered why you initially put extra money in there if we were in fact tracking a little lower.
I thought we would have more events next year. Track is an expensive event for officials and stuff. So that was sort of the original thought. And then I was thinking of I thought the scorers and stuff were in there, but they're not. They're in the stipend account, so I said, well, I don't need the money because the scorers and timekeepers and stuff are in the stipend account.
Okay, thank you.
So
Amy, do you have
so-
other questions on that page?
Just curious. Thank you.
Alex, you have a few?
No, I like how the conversation's going, but there's a couple of nitpicks, I guess. So you have some office help that's out of the cafeteria aid. How much is that, roughly?
It's probably about, it's a minimum wage position, works a few hours a week.
I thought it was half-time. That's what was said. Because if it was, I'd rather see that money up in the central office, just to match where it really belongs, to kind of show what is actually being used versus, so it's more accurate in my mind. So if you have one person doing half-time supporting central office, then put
No,
the dollars.
they're supporting the elementary school.
Oh,
So the cafeteria aides are in the elementary school, and the office aide is also in the elementary school helping Kelly.
So
There's
is there-
none of that in the high school.
is there a better account to put it under rather than,
Well, office aide for it should be.
is there office aid?
Yeah, there's an account for office aide.
Yeah.
Person needs to be split. and Right
Mhm.
now, they haven't been
We
split.
should put it there then.
Yes,
Yeah. Also, have we ever paid any constables? I don't think we paid
it's
any.
called that, but we don't hire police.
Well, they
It's
show
really for
up.
referees, but
Right.
that's what the account's always been called. You're right, the name
So
is
maybe we
misleading.
could take the constable right off of the name. It's
If
just-
I
it's
would,
confusing.
so you don't have people asking questions.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good, I can do that. Changing the name is an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Bill, is there a reason why we have these things in the stipend, like line? Is that just in order to buffer that stipend line? Is that kind of the goal?
I think it was there when I got here.
All right. No, I just didn't know why we had things being used for the same thing coming out of two separate lines. Because they're using because we still have money in here for officials and we have money in the
Yeah.
stipend line for officials. So,
Well, scorekeepers is one thing and referees is another thing.
okay, so the officials, the referees, the other pieces is just the people working the clock and stuff. Got it. All right.
But I'll think about it. Maybe it'd be just easier to lump all the athletic stuff into one account and just call it scorekeepers, referees instead of constables, and then make the stipends really stipends.
Except it is kind of nice to be able to have something in that stipend one, just in case you had that. I was just trying to wrap my head around why we had stuff coming from different accounts, but
Some of it's just, that's how it's always been, right?
Bill, I would be in favor of you putting things in places not only where they go, but that it's clear to us what it's for and clear to the public, the Board of Finance, because as people look through this, they are not going to understand as like we clearly didn't understand who fell under what. So anything you can do to label these so that they're more accurate, I
Okay.
think that would be really helpful.
All right.
Other questions on the first page? Okay. Moving on to the second page. Um, At the top of the page, professional service consultants, Bill, you initially had put $25,000, I think, in there, and then you backed $10,000 out. And I wondered, what are we not getting that we did get this year?
Well, we're not using the legal fees that much this year, so we're not spending the money this year.
So we
And-
budgeted
and-
too
and-
high this year?
Yes, and we added, and then we have also money in contract negotiations to cover legal fees for that. So basically, we have $23,000 for legal fees.
Wasn't that legal fees under contract negotiations in the past, or?
Yeah, that contract negotiations is legal fees for the contract.
No, I thought Stephanie was asking about the professional services consultant, and you said that was legal fees.
Yeah, but it's legal not to do with contract negotiation.
Okay, so it's bifurcated by what the actual service was, okay.
Right.
So you're comfortable with reducing it, we are still gonna be funding it at an adequate level?
Yes. As long as you don't need Nick, right? Well, we
And-
shouldn't,
Yeah, we're all caught up on the contracts. Is that correct?
we have one next
Okay.
year.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think next year I think we might be up for secretary. again
Secretary,
in the
that's right.
springtime.
We have to
Good.
negotiate the secretaries next year.
Right, yeah. And the administrator's contract went quickly this year. It didn't cost us much.
So moving to fiscal services, it's an 84.71% increase. Can you talk a little bit about what that might be?
Okay. So the main driver in that is the cost of the Infinite Visions maintenance contract. The main driver. And then I took some small things like E-rate had its own line, which didn't make much sense because it's a one-shot deal. And we have, and Future Plan, which is our pension consultant for the old pension that some of our employees have. We have Infinite Visions, we have E-rate. We have to do every audit, we have to do a GASB study for benefits, long-term benefits to be required for the audit. And then we have a maintenance contract with the student activity accounting system.
So the big jump is the Infinite Visions maintenance fee that wasn't, it doesn't appear that it was there last year based on your numbers?
Right, it was in license and fees, so we're moving it to central office.
So all
that's
you've
good.
done here is just move something from one line item
Right,
to another.
because it's not educational.
Can you give us the line that it came out of?
Well, we moved a lot of things into software.
Well, let's just talk about this one thing. So where was Infinite Visions before?
In software licenses. But it's,
So that, right, that should have gone down?
well, no, because we added a lot of things to that. That line item has been under budgeted and we've added a lot of software, so we trying to put most of it all in the same line item. And there was a list attached of all the software in the original budget handout.
I'm looking at that line item and that one also has gone up 70, almost 74%. So can we maybe talk about the specific things in it?
Can- is
So-
that-
It was in the handout when the original budget.
So,
I have the fiscal services list.
but I think in there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, some of that also includes some of the new curriculum pieces with the reading programs, things like that. Is that, is part of that?
Part of that, so we have the internet service, 23,000, Envision Math, 15,000, Renaissance Learning Star, 10,000, Microsoft licensing, 10,000, firewall, 10,000, Power School maintenance, 10,000, Ingenuity, sped software, 10,000, Frontline, HR, 7,900. So a lot of it was scattered between different accounts. So it was being, it's so different areas of the technology. So I tried to put them all in one account and budgeted them there.
So where can we see, and I found the page for this as well. Where can we see where a line decreased? As you were reassigning things to where you felt like they fit better, which I appreciate. We want to put things where they fit. But I'm wondering if you could point to some of those places where we should see a decrease because things were moved out.
I believe some of it, there might be some supplies lines. I remember there was one specific thing that was, in the middle school, high school supply line, and we said, no, that's a computer program we want to put on this list.
High school dues and fees included some software, so that line item went down.
So what you're saying is we're not going to see a substantial decrease to any single line item. We might see a substantial increase to other ones because of the smaller decreases elsewhere.
Right, and I don't think we were accurately accounting for everything.
Right.
So it just makes it,
Getting that sense.
it makes it more difficult to kind of track year to year.
Right, that was
Yeah.
the problem we were having. Like, I was going, well, where's this going and where's this coming from? And so I
It
said,
just makes this budget cycle a little bit tougher because of
yeah, I
Yeah.
had to sort of,
Right.
the shifting of accounts, so.
And
so like we have, science techs are in here because it's a subscription, and the movie licensing is a subscription, and Follett, which is the library, used to be in the library supplies. And so, and we're trying to get a handle on all the software to make sure it's every year that it's still valid. And it's hard when it's all over the place.
so I'm going to ask a question, and I don't expect you to say that you did this, but when you started to shift things from one line to another to kind of clean it up, did you keep a kind of tracking record of what was shifted from where so there's kind of this historical look back as this is where it was, but this is where we shifted and this is why we needed to shift it?
Maybe not right at the moment, but yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would be kind of interesting because then we could kind of see, we could look at and see, okay, this is where this shifted, this is where this went. This is how this went from this line item to this line item because this is where it
Okay.
actually fit better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think to track some of these changes, I think that'll help provide clarity for us.
Right, and help bridge the gap with that historical look back that Alex is talking about.
Okay.
And not only
Certainly
that.
those questions are gonna come up, so,
Yeah.
from others outside of us.
That's
Even
what,
if you don't present the list to us, at least it's somewhere.
yeah, well,
a
that's what I was gonna say. All these questions and wanting to know why it's here instead of there, or why this or that, because when we're out in the public, when I'm talking to people who have questions, because this is a public document, so
Right.
so they'll see everything. I just want to be able to give them an answer, so they're like, I'm not going to support that. Well, I'm going to say, no, well, this is why. So I think we're all trying really hard just to understand what each line item means.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. I agree. Because I'm having a hard time tracking. And now when I'm hearing like, well, instructional supply at the media center, but when I'm looking at it, that line item didn't go down. It actually is also still going up. So I'm like, some of these line items must be going down if we've moved from one to the other. And I think this board has experienced in the past a lot of non-transparency. So we're just really trying to make sure we fully understand. We're not trying to be super nitpicky, but we just want to, we know what the budget is that we had. Like if I'm trying to look at what did we actually spend on something, I can't tell now because I can't compare it. And that's concerning for me if I can't see our actual to where it's getting budgeted.
Okay.
So if we keep looking down here, I'm looking at the transportation for co-op sports. So we budgeted $20,000 and we've gotten rid of that entire budget.
Can we talk about transportation as a whole down here? Because it's a lot of the regular transportation is only going up 1.1%.
Yeah, I'm not even, it's still under purchase services. I'm just confused about why it's here and why it's zero. Did it go somewhere else, Bill?
It just went to sports transportation. So there was no reason to have a separate line for co-op sports.
Okay. Can we do electricity before we do transportation? Right? Okay. So facilities, utilities and leases. Here we have that the electricity at the elementary school is going to double. Is that,
That was the issue
That's what we budgeted.
Right.
And what was the action?
Right, we had the issue with
Oh, sure,
With the
the
bill.
issue, but what's right, where are we at right now? No, I mean, in our actual.
we spent it so far 44,000 year to date.
And so how much are we, yeah, how much are we predicted to be under budgeted by?
We're gonna be over budget this.
I'm
year.
sorry, I mean, how much did we under budget by last year?
By around 35,000.
Yeah. Mhm.
Could be, comes in about 70 to 80,000.
Okay,
No, depending, no, it's a variable, of course.
and then why did we see a decrease in general building services? Are we not getting something, or is that something that was?
Because we decided to move all repairs to repair, so there's no more repairs in general building services, and we increased the repair lines.
Okay. I think we may want to start identifying the number that we're gonna cut out of our budget for the major repairs that we're now gonna be asking. I think that Alex and Christine will probably need that to be talking about in their capital work group, because eventually the town is going to want to add that in, and we are going to have to show that we are not funding that.
So we bumped that up. this budget.
Right, so that stuck out for me as well, that we did bump that up this
Right.
year.
The repair line, you mean? Well, the repair isn't necessarily capital, it's just sort of maintenance.
Can you clarify that for us?
Yeah,
So what line are we looking at? So
I see zeroed out.
I see zeroed out repairs in middle school, high school, and elementary.
Bill, do you want to talk about where that money is?
But there was no budget for it for this year, though.
There's nothing for this year. Last year there was.
So can you talk about what you have budgeted for repairs? So if you look on if you look on our last page, it talks about repairs again, and that's where the increase is. Okay, so do you see where it says repairs WHS? So,
So those numbers did go up significantly.
Right.
Stuff has come out of the budget there. Okay.
right, so we don't want to budget like we're gonna do that again next year, because we're looking to the town to do that, right? That's part of that work group. So,
Yeah, that's right.
but it will be, so we're gonna have to come up with a number that we're suggesting that we're taking out of ours.
Yeah.
And they're gonna wanna talk about putting that kind of number in theirs.
are you saying you
Right.
want to zero that line, those two line items
No,
out?
no.
Okay.
But as far as the work group, I don't think that's supposed to impact this year's budget, right?
I think it is impacting this year's budget, yeah.
Well, they are, depending
Yeah.
on.
So what type of repairs are they gonna be doing? Do we, well, we don't know. I can't take something out of
It's
the
under,
budget till I know what.
I think what we want to look at is the prior year's spend. We're having pretty ongoing discussions right now about it, but I would say anything that looked like it was substantial, that would be one-time larger repair. We shouldn't be budgeting for that again and then increasing that line item, certainly. If nothing else, I'd say leave it flat until we know more. But we
Okay.
are looking to, some of those repairs that we did really shouldn't have been on us this year, and we're not looking to absorb those in our budget each year.
Troy, perhaps you can, I know that you and Bill came up with that document together that we shared with the capital group
Mhm.
the other night. Perhaps you can take a look at that with Bill, and you guys can, I mean, you sat through that discussion as well, so you know the direction I think that they're trying to move to. Maybe you can anticipate some of that.
we could do a guesstimate.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Okay, Brian, do you want to do transportation?
Sure.
Go
since
for it.
I hear all the time transportation's expensive. We know it is. Yeah, I'm seeing that transportation's going down across the board with the exception of a small bump to regular ed, but special ed's gone down. I'm assuming some of that's due to students coming back into district.
Correct?
But then I'm starting to look at transportation for athletics. And I see one's going down substantially, though we're talking about increasing opportunities for students. And I'm seeing that the high school transportation's gone only up a little bit. Yet you cut the transportation for co-op sports, which was a $20,000 line item, but only increased the overall by 2,600. So
Based on what we actually spent last year, which is pretty
Okay.
close.
is it okay?
Yeah,
I'm just
we didn't spend any on co-op. It was all in transportation.
okay. Like I said, I just noticed that those numbers were a little off from one another, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so this year for high school sports, which is not including the 20,000, we budgeted 48,000 and so far we spent 23,000. So we still have spring sports and winter sports. So we've only spent about half of the original 48.
Okay,
So I think we're
you're in good shape.
in
then.
good shape
Okay.
unless, again, we go to every state meet in the country.
Well, I think as you start to look at the teams being more successful, they're going to be in more tournaments. So you're going to start to see tournament fees increasing. You're going to see transportation fees increasing only because you have to actually go to more places.
Oh, yeah, especially for running events. So we have 56,000.
So I know, so this is a lot of money, this transportation. I know, I remember last year, weren't we going to have a small working group to really look into this? Yes, I think the three of us were all.
We
going to-
were, but then Troy had asked that we hold on that. He had already cut one bus run, and because we have a contract coming up, he asked that we hold off.
Okay.
I'm moving forward with that.
So could we revisit sometime?
Sure.
Troy, what do
could.
you feel like is going to be helpful?
I'm
Well-
not sure we can do much better on the transportation. And I think, you guys actually talked about that last meeting a little bit when, but I don't think we can do a lot better. We already cut a bus run. This is a big town. There's a lot of area to cover, and we don't want kids sitting on the bus longer than they are now. I mean, yeah, you could decide to get a committee together, say, hey, we're gonna limit the number of bus stops and kids are gonna have to walk to the neighbor's house to get on the bus, but you know how that's gonna go.
We've tried that, and it ruined my Martha's Vineyard vacation. Bus stops are not popular in this town. We certainly can look at it. We can also look at things like having parents opt out of busing, things like that until they need the bus. And then we have to provide a seat for every child in the district. So we've kind of looked at a lot of those options when we looked at changing school start times. I'm in agreement with you. I would love to see us somehow wrap our head around the transportation. I just don't know now with going out to RFP. if it's
What
the
we
right
could
time.
do.
Oh, and by the way, I was off a year. Bus contract is an end
No,
at the end of
correct.
next year.
So we have a contract through next year because of the
Right.
extension.
I was looking at the budget. Oh, it's the
Because
last year. Well, it's the last
Right.
year.
So
next
what we
year.
could do though is we could gather some data around other towns and what they pay for their bus contract, just to have that, just to know that. If you want, we can gather that data.
The bus thing, we pay, I think we're not ever going to pay much less. And we pay a lot less than a lot of other people.
When we've done it in the past, it's not like we're debating over which, it's, we're here with M&J and then we're here with our other bids. And you're talking about moving all these buses, getting rid of drivers, but I do think we maybe could look at what we're doing with the company we have, maybe in the next 12 months before the next contract.
And Jamie, I think that's what you were sort of
Yeah,
leaning towards,
I
right?
don't want to lose sight of it. I know it came up and then we kind of stopped talking about it. So just to kind of bring it up. And if we get kind of a lot of criticism about our budget, and I'm sure transportation is going to be one of them, right? Because it's a very big number. Could we just say that we're thinking about it and we're working and, maybe we have a working group looking at it?
Yeah,
Sure.
I definitely would love to talk about it further, maybe after budget season a little bit.
Yeah.
Not now,
Not in the middle.
not now, later.
Christine's looking for another meeting. in case anybody wants to know. Can we go to the bottom of that page to telephone? When we moved to this new system, I know there were some hiccups. But I thought it was supposed to make our service less expensive. But at the bottom of page 2, chap, the last 2 items, telephone middle school, telephone high school. You know what? I am using the one that I printed earlier this week, which I think the spacing looks a little different. So if you flip to your next page, you'll see it.
Without having the line items, it's really hard.
It's very hard.
So are you saying, sorry, telephone elementary, telephone gymatorium? Is that the items? that you're
I'm
saying?
looking at telephone middle school,
I'm sorry.
telephone high school. And if you look there, we're at a 69% increase for one and a 50% increase for another. Shouldn't this have been less expensive with our change?
You look back to the previous year, you see 23, the actuals have always been way higher than the budget. This line seems to have been under budgeted. You know, with the high school was 21,000 back in
So,
fiscal year 23.
is,
Right.
but does every classroom have a phone in it?
To do now, yeah.
They do now, and that's where the cost comes in because you're being charged per line. Because I know my school, we don't have phones in every classroom because of the exorbitant expense. It's almost $200 per classroom to have a phone per year.
So my understanding was our change to this new phone system was supposed to decrease our cost.
That's-
But it decreased compared to the actual.
But I think we're saying that we increased in the classroom, is that right? Or you're just
no.
saying that, look, for a long time, we were under budgeting?
Right, I can review it again, but that's been the pattern. We've been under budget.
Yeah,
Christine, you're saying that there were cell phones included in that at one point?
no. Cell phones were a separate line item.
Oh, were they?
Yes, it was like $350 or whatever a month, or whatever, yeah. So I don't recall that we were overrunning. But we
Well,
definitely
we'll,
would've- unless it
maybe
was-
now that we've cleared out all the old vendors and everything, and we're just down to where I can sort of recalculate how we'll be going forward.
Is there any leasing fees in that, or is it just strictly actually calls? I don't know, I'm just trying to understand what the
It's-
expense is all about.
It's just the cost of the system.
I know it's, yeah, it's
Over IP.
difficult when you're talking about new things. I think that the direction we've tried to move as a board is to budget as close to the actual as you can. And so instead of sort of just anticipating that this might be what it looks like, to try and get closer to what that actual number is going to be so that our budget can be reflective of what we think is very real and not maybe what could happen. The
Yeah,
Board of
well-
Finance much prefers to see that, as I think the residents do.
Well, the actual number was 12,000, we budgeted 7,000. The actual number was 21,000, we budgeted 8,000.
I think I just heard you say that now that we've cleared out all the old vendors, you might be able to get a better sense of where we'll be going forward. Is
Right.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
But it won't be.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the high school, middle school, though, it seems like the students are kind of split between that and the elementary school-ish. That it's double the cost. I just, all the kids kind of in the same building, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of, yeah, if you can just look into it and just give us some visibility of what's driving costs, would be nice to understand, I guess. If it's leasing fees, if it's usage fees, or whatever it may be.
Okay.
I think that brings us down to supplies. Anyone have questions there?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I guess I'm gonna start on page 4. The distance learning, is that the Google Classroom account? What is distance learning that we're still paying $2,500 for?
That's credit recovery.
Could we,
Ingenuity? Okay.
I guess,
That being software licenses.
It is in software licenses.
But-
And it's
Is that, is
$10,000.
that, is that the enrichment cost though? Is that like if a student wants to take Arabic and they do that, is that?
That might be one of those things, or yeah, those courses that we can't provide here where they're doing like a VL.
I know they have a like
Yeah, we
sign
have-
language, and other things that they offer via.
Yeah, we
Online
have small
process.
things like that, and sort of, that's sort of a catch-all.
I think it would be helpful if we could understand what was really in that, so we're not just sort of saying we think that it might be that.
Yeah, I think it's just as little misleading that we offer distance learning that.
It's $200 less. What is it?
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm good.
And then I'm gonna say tournament fees went up substantially. Are we projecting our teams to do that much better, that we are going to more than double our tournament fee allotment?
And it seems to be running higher than the past. The actual is running higher, so I think,
Well, and I
Okay.
think that's the CIAC, and the ECC charge their fees as it is, and then I get that. So,
and track there's always a fee because there tend to be like relays,
yes.
like the leaded relay and NFA relay, and then you have to pay a fee to.
Right, when you
Yeah.
go to those different meets,
Yeah.
or same thing can be for a wrestling meet sometimes where you have, okay. The more track you do, the more competitions, because it's not just a dual meet, it's sometimes you go into multiple team meets.
Is that the question?
He answered.
Okay. So you feel comfortable?
I feel comfortable with that, because he's right, because you do some in-season sort of like relays or meets or special tournaments, wrestling or things of that nature, basketball tournaments sometimes, so those have an entry fee that are in addition to what you might be paying for a league tournament fee or a CIAC sanctioned fee, or if you have an athlete that's good enough to say on the track team, if they qualify for New England's or nationals, you have to pay for that as well.
It's much higher than last year.
We have that.
Right.
And we don't have that currently, and I'm looking at what our actual is, and I know it's not a huge line item, but we should be going based on actuals.
I
what we
agree.
Anticipate, are we talking to our coaches and saying, what do you think your team looks like next year? You know, what are we anticipating? We can't budget for if we have this or if we have that until we get there.
Oh, turn your microphone.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if that caught it. But I think that it is, it's good to say, when we look at, tournament fees, I don't see that we're really upside down in those this year in our actuals, but there is a 159% increase.
But again, what has the conference, what is the local conference, the
I
ECC?
know, but what are we actually spending?
Okay, so
now?
Christine, let me finish what I'm saying before you cut me off.
Sorry.
What is our league conference charging us per event that we have a team that would qualify for? Because we have to project whether or not we have that. What's the CIAC projecting their fees are going to be for next year, which they're putting out right now. So that there is that as well. And as more of our kids do track, that's going to be another one of those things where there are those additional fees.
And all of that is great if that's really how this is being figured.
Correct.
Right?
And that's.
So we're not just,
That's how Bill explained it. He goes, because of those relays, like ledger relays, things like that, those fees go up as well every year.
so you expect that even though we're not under budgeting this year, that next year, based on your calculations, Bill, we are going to see a 159% increase in tournament fees?
Well, currently, we are over budget in tournament fees by, so far we spent $3,000 on tournament.
I see that it looks like we're gonna finish the year like in the negative by 3%. Is that right?
We still have basketball tournament coming up here, right? And we have all of the track
Spring
stuff.
sports.
That's in the, yeah, isn't that final percentage supposed to be projected out?
Which one are you,
Line 604.
you're looking at the January?
Yeah, line
Have
604 in
you
the
paid the
January
winter
report.
season
Right, we have,
fees yet?
we've only paid one season worth of sports that we're projecting out 1/3 used versus
2/3. This is January, so basketball hasn't finished.
I thought that
Right,
this
but-
brought us to the end of the year.
That's what I thought.
Well, it's a guess.
Yeah, that, I believe that was a best guesstimate that you wanted that column, and we told you we can't do it accurately. It's a best guess. So that was our best guess at the moment when we did it. If we could redo that in
So,
the next monthly report.
Yeah, especially if we know we haven't
'cause if we-
finished our sports
'cause
season
if
yet.
we
Yeah.
haven't paid the winter season yet, we really, for those tournaments, this is that's an inaccurate number for what the tournament, for what we're gonna be paying in.
Right, so I think, Bill, in order to make that projection on our reports more accurate, you could probably do a look back at last year to see where you anticipate that will be short this year. Because
Okay.
that would help me to justify the fact that we have a 150-something% increase. Yeah, we do. Don't have to go to 7. Um, So,
A lot of the current year costs are tracked.
what's that, Bill?
A lot of it, the current year costs are indoor track meets.
Okay. Sure. Can you just maybe modify that in our monthly reports to
Yeah.
reflect what that's gonna look like towards the end of the year, at least your projection?
Yep.
Thank you. I think probably we need to wrap this up. So how do we want to proceed? Obviously, we have a meeting next week where we're back to doing our budget, but we also have executive session at next week's meeting. So I've asked Troy to cut out the presentation so we could try and get through our business. Is that comfortable for everyone in terms of how to proceed with budget?
Yeah, can I just confirm the time is at 6:30?
It will, yeah, it'll be our regular
Regular
meeting
time.
next week at 6:30. I don't have an appetite at this point to add another meeting. Anyone else? Okay. All right, well then, with that, do we have,
I move to adjourn the meeting?
I think we have to do public comment. It's
Oh,
on
that's right, sorry.
it's still on our agenda. Any public comment? Brian, I would entertain that motion now.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Troy, it looks like